Greetings, fellow seekers of the unknown. I'm here to tell you about A Study of Strange, the podcast where the unexplained comes alive. I'm your guide, Michael May, journeying with you into the shadows of unsolved crimes, perplexing mysteries, and phenomena that defy explanation. Each episode, I'm joined by a guest that usually doesn't know the story I'm telling, and we unravel compelling and perplexing tales from history. Together we sift through facts, challenge myths, and immerse ourselves in the stories. A Study of Strange isn't your typical true crime or mystery podcast. It's a place for the inquisitive, where we temper curiosity with skepticism and illuminate the darkest corners of human experience. Listen and subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform, and come celebrate the bizarre. Thank you for tuning in. Your adventure into A Study of Strange awaits.
Hello, everybody. This is Megan.
And this is Alana.
And welcome to Tea Time Crimes.
Welcome to the podcast.
Wow, that's silky smooth. And we have a new intern with us today, right? Nymeria is joining us.
Yes! So if you heard a little, that's her.
That's her. Last week when I was listening back,
You should have
she
kept
had
it.
let out a really big
She
scream.
was pissed. She wasn't in here.
Yeah, she was very upset. And the problem is I thought one of my cats, it was so loud, I thought it was one of my cats locked in a room, so I kept pausing the recording and like, Pepper, are you okay? It took me two playbacks before I thought, oh my gosh, that was
That's
Nymeria just letting it,
hilarious.
just letting it roll. She was so
Yeah,
mad.
she gets really upset. So her favorite bed is in here, which
Yeah,
she doesn't even use properly. So it's a little baby Yoda. It's a cave.
yeah.
But she sits on top of it and just squishes it down. It's like,
Of
okay.
course she does.
This is
Yeah,
very on target for her
absolutely.
personality.
That's what she does. All right. Well, we are here for part 2, so I want to get into it.
Yeah. Let me
Sooner
pause
rather.
right here, folks. You know what? When we've done this before, we get to do the whole episode. So I know what happens. I'm not left on a cliff like y'all. She let me out of the car, walked me to the cliff, and said, here, hang on this for a week. So I just want to know I suffered with you.
Yeah, she was so mad at me. She
I
put her
couldn't
headphones
believe
on.
we were doing that.
She's like, all right, let's do it. I was like, we're not doing anything. We're done. She freaked out. What? Are you kidding me? So, yeah. I said, no, we don't have
Hashtag
time. It's
pissed.
too much. Yeah. All right. Well, walk us through a tea review so we can get to that part 2.
I have something first.
Oh, excuse me.
I found a word to add to our vocabulary from the internet.
Let's confabulate about it.
Oh, well, the origin is Yorkshire, and the word is titty-toit, to spruce or tidy up. You know, I'm going to titty-toit the hell out of this house after we record.
Hi, spell it.
Titty-toit. Oh, do you think it's titty-toit? No, it's Yorkshire. It's not French.
How are you saying it?
Titty-toit?
Man, is it still in circulation?
I doubt it, but I hope so.
Well, titty twat your language and let's get started.
That's the word of the week. And then I'd also like to open with a song.
Oh my gosh. We're never going to get to part 2. Just fast forward. All right, go ahead.
Excuse me. Chestnuts roasting
Please
on an
stop.
open fire.
Why?
It's the holiday time.
Oh boy. This means the Grinch has lifted her
Yep.
ban and she's now
Yep, we're here.
She now thinks she's Father Christmas. This is how she is. She's the Grinch for 330 days out of the year, and then she just pretends that she loves it.
I do love it. All right. Today we have chestnut tea,
Hey,
which
there it
feels
is.
very relevant for winter. It's premium black tea from Sri Lanka, flavored with the taste of chestnuts. A spicy treat. Delectable both hot and cold. Okay, I would never try it cold. If you have yet to try gourmet chestnut tea, you'll be pleasantly surprised by its superior taste. I don't want you to tell me how to feel. So,
Wow. That I was just sitting here zoned out listening to you read the tea review, and then you just brought me back with a snap. Don't tell me how to feel, tea review. How did
Okay.
they say you should feel?
Pleasantly surprised. We'll see about
Well,
that.
let's see. See if they're accurate.
Okay, the smell is a black tea with some kind of like, it's like almost creamy vanilla-y
I
smell.
like how you can smell creamy.
What do chestnuts smell like?
I don't know. I've
Have-
actually never roasted chestnuts on a fire, opened or closed, so I have no idea.
Well, what are we doing with our lives?
Nothing.
Interesting. This is very complex. It only has 2 ingredients, but it is going for a ride in my mouth.
My mouth.
Great body. Fantastic body. There's that depth. I love it. A+ on body. The flavor, it's like, I can't put my finger on it. There is a certain spice there. Maybe it's almost like clovey.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
But yeah, there's that creamy vanilla that like wiggles through, and then it like putting little puffs of spice here and there as it's going down.
A diffuser.
It's nice. Yes, exactly.
All right.
Wow, this is a trip.
Would you say you're surprised?
I would say that this is a pleasantly surprising thumbs up. You got me, folks. You got me.
Hey, if you're going to tell her how to feel, at least be accurate. All right. We love it.
All right, let's go to the creepy ass sisters.
Yeah. So if you have not listened to part 1, stop what you're doing.
Go back.
Well, yep. Go back and listen because there's a ton of stuff. But if you just are like me and what was yesterday, let me just give you a quick summary. So we have 24.
Last week on Tea Time Crimes.
Previously, we have Ocey Snead, who is 24 years old. She was found dead in her bathtub with a suicide note next to her body. Her aunt, Virginia Wardlaw, is the one who called this in. And it comes out that Ocey had been living with 3 women, all wearing black, all wearing veils. Her mother, Caroline Martin, her aunt and mother-in-law, Mary Snead, and her aunt, Virginia Wardlaw. And there are rumors that Ocey was being held captive. There are rumors that Ocey was there against her will. There are rumors that Ocey was suicidal. And the police have Virginia Wardlaw in custody. They have just found Caroline Martin, who was on the run, and they have also taken Mary Snead into custody for the possible murder of Ocey Snead because of how she was found in the bathtub. So that's where we're at. There's a whole bunch of weird family history that we covered and rumors from when they lived in Tennessee. It's a very, very weird and complex family dynamic. So go back and listen if you hadn't. But when we last left off, would have been nice if I'd gone to the point where I left off in my notes, but why would I do that?
Why would
That
you
would
make
be-
yourself easier? No,
That would
not
be
yourself.
make myself easier. No,
Ooh.
I would not like
Stick
to
that
do that.
ankle out.
I'm actually today I'm wearing very thick socks. So, you know.
Good luck, boys.
Yeah, there's nothing to see here, folks.
Gotta get through that.
Keep on moving. All right. So Caroline's just been arrested. She's checked into a hotel under
Yes.
a fake name, and she won't let anybody in the room, and she won't leave. But she sticks out because she's wearing a veil and
Right.
a cape and a floor-length black dress at all times, and that's who they're looking for. So after Caroline's arrested, hundreds of letters are found in her hotel room. They're all very similar to the note that was found pinned to Ocey's clothes the day she was discovered. They have Ocey's signature at the bottom. Some of these letters are addressed to her husband, Fletcher, who is still either dead or in the wind. Some of them are addressed to people in town, all with similar content. And some of them are so close to the note that was found that they're actually called copies.
Wow.
Mrs. Martin said Ocey was the author of each one of these notes
No.
and that she had to be watched constantly for her own safety.
No.
Yet you'll remember that Virginia seemed fine with letting Ocey spend 24 hours unsupervised in a bathroom.
Yeah.
So Caroline said that once Ocey's daughter, Mary, passed away and Fletcher was reported dead, Ocey did not want to go on. Now, clippings of Ocey's case were also found in Caroline's room, as well as a paper trail of each hotel Caroline had been at as she was moving around the city. By the 18th, all of the sisters have been arraigned. Mary and Caroline are being held in the New York jail. They have to await for extradition because the crime happened in New Jersey.
Oh.
Side note, the New York jail is called the Tombs because it looks like an Egyptian mausoleum at the time.
Cool. I mean, not for the prisoners.
Not for them. Further investigation brings into question, right, if Ocey was even Caroline's daughter, which Caroline says she was her biological daughter. Because there were rumors that she was adopted. There were also those rumors that maybe she was Virginia's daughter and she'd been adopted to save Virginia's reputation. Investigators also confirmed their earlier hunch. One of the reasons Ocey was said to have been so despondent was because her husband was dead. Well, he's alive. And Caroline knew.
I knew it.
Yeah, Caroline knew about it. And she said
So
Ocey had to be
sketch.
watched because she was so upset, yet she knew Fletcher was alive and didn't tell her.
We know these ladies are rotten.
Rotten. So police find Fletcher Snead in Ontario, Canada. He's working as a cook by the name of John Lucas. Employees there describe him as
What?
likable but quiet. He told people he was widowed.
Okay, so he's in on it.
Well, hold up. I haven't fully made up my mind about Fletcher, but there's a lot more that I'm going to cover today that might
Fletcher
lean you one way or another. So employees where Fletcher work recognize pictures of Caroline because she'd come
Why?
to visit Fletcher under the name Mrs. Ball, and he'd told everyone that this is my aunt. And after she left, Fletcher became even more withdrawn at work.
Oh, she said something.
It's an odd twist to the story, but police really have nothing to charge Fletcher with because he was most likely not there, which is kind of the problem. He abandoned his wife with these 3 women.
Wait,
So
a
that's
question
not
real
necessarily
quick.
a crime, but it's not great.
When did she visit after she died?
No, before, while she
Okay.
was alive, she visited. Yeah. Now, Fletcher believes his aunts are innocent and that Ocey died by suicide. He claims he did not leave because of Ocey. He says that he loved Ocey and that they were not forced to marry.
So why'd you leave her?
He'd left because he was to be a witness in a federal case against his friend, William Earthman. He liked William so much that he refused to testify against him no matter what. And he thought that was the honorable thing to do.
So he pretended he was dead and abandoned his wife for that guy.
Yeah. I feel like Ocey could have been let in on that secret, maybe.
Maybe.
He's quoted in the Baltimore Sun as saying, Fletcher W. Snead is dead. Dead as a cold grave and as safely buried, so far as I am concerned. I am John Lucas and will remain such until the end of my life. I am through with the past and will not dig it up. I intend to remain what I have been since coming here. Go away and leave me alone.
No,
I don't
we're
know
digging it
you
up.
and don't want to. Go at once.
How dare you? You abandon your wife to these evil people.
That doesn't sound to me like somebody who is trying to do the honorable thing by their friend. That sounds to me like
No.
somebody who's had a very traumatic past. What happened where you're trying to be
Escape.
a totally different person?
Wow. I don't know. I don't have good vibes about this guy, but maybe I'll learn more.
Well, it's just weird. If you're really, the jig is up. They found you. So if you're really trying to avoid testifying against somebody, then it's like, well, yeah, that's what I was trying to do. And I was
Right.
hoping to return to Ocey. But instead, he's saying, I'm John Lucas for the rest of my life. Fletcher's dead. That's extreme.
Yeah, that's very
The case is
extreme.
going to end at some point. So maybe cool it. Mary Snead sends a telegram to Fletcher once she finds out where he is, telling him not to worry and not to come home, that they'll handle this themselves.
Yeah.
And it's believed that Mary also didn't know. Because,
Really?
yes, because the warden notices after this that Mary seems pretty mad at Caroline.
Really?
He thinks that Caroline just kept the secret and didn't tell Ocey or Mary.
Huh.
There's no telling for sure, but Mary seemed pretty ticked.
So is she the head bitch?
Well,
The
that's what
evilest?
we gotta find out. Still, the prosecution believes, right? They believe wholeheartedly, no matter what Fletcher says, that Ocey was murdered, that she
Yes.
was held underwater. If not that scenario, Prosecutor Mop additionally will include charges that Caroline and Mary commanded Virginia to commit the crime, and a third charge that the 3 sisters aided and abetted in Ocey's suicide.
Good. Lay on all the charges.
Yeah, he's putting everything on them. And although it's not a charge, there's an additional theory at this point, supported by some of the documents found when they discovered Caroline, that the 4 women plus Fletcher had some sort of suicide pact.
What?
I don't know. Mary and Caroline say they had nothing to do with it, that they weren't even in the state when the death occurred, that it was only Virginia and Ocey, that they weren't anywhere near it. Well,
shit.
exactly. For starters, it was determined that it was Mary Snead, who was in East Orange, and asked the local pharmacist for a list of doctors so that they could obtain a health certificate for Ocey. You remember they needed that at the
yes.
beginning. It was Mary Snead who contacted a realtor looking for homes to rent, commenting at each one the size of the bathtub.
Wow.
Yeah.
And she's her mom, right? Mary is?
Mary's her mother-in-law and her aunt.
Mother-in-law. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's so fucked.
It was Caroline Martin who was seen in the East Orange neighborhood by a young man named Charles Kirk the night Ocey was reported dead. It was Caroline Martin who was seen by the train conductor getting on the East Orange stop at 4 p.m. the day Ocey's death was reported. When the prosecution states they also have a piece of Caroline's veil that fell off that same day from the wind and somebody picked it up, Caroline says that's impossible. It wasn't windy that day. How would you know it wasn't windy that day if you weren't there?
You dumb bitch.
Ooh, whoops. It was at 4:40 that Virginia Wardlaw called requesting the coroner, which would have given Caroline 40 minutes to, quote, get away. That's what the prosecution is saying. So they are adamant that all 3 sisters were involved in this plan, that it was premeditated, that Mary was setting it up, that Caroline and Virginia were there when it happened, and that Caroline left and Virginia allowed her time to get away.
Wow.
Caroline is told by the lawyer, do not talk to the press. Don't do it.
You already let something stupid slip.
She doesn't listen. She talks to them anytime she likes. She seems to actually enjoy it.
Let it all out, baby.
Also makes sure to comment that they need to do a better job of drawing her in the newspaper and getting her likeness down a little bit better. So,
wow. That's horrific.
Wow.
Like, that's how evil these girls are, ladies, women.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you're worried about?
They're so... How do you get... You know how we say the 2% thing?
Yeah.
How do we get all 3 out of one family to be like this?
Well, I think... I don't think that's the case, right? I think it's similar to when we look at those cases where there's a couple. There's always a dominant personality, and you can usually say if the dominant personality had never encountered these other 2, that the other people probably wouldn't have done anything.
They're just malleable.
Yeah, yes. So I don't know. We'll have to see. There's a lot to unpack here. So Caroline gets a new lawyer because on December 20th, Caroline fires her lawyer and he calls her insane. And Mary Snead backs him up on this and says that Caroline is mentally ill and the family has been trying to hide this secret for decades.
What?
So I tell you, I don't think Mary's too happy. That's why I don't think Mary knew Fletcher was alive. Caroline's new lawyer, Colonel Robert J. Hare, says Caroline is fine. Perfectly competent, intelligent woman. It's Ocey who had the problem. Ocey was addicted to morphine, and he used the term dope fiend.
Wow.
Yeah. Says that she'd been struggling with addiction for the last few years and using a needle to administer the drug, going through long periods of not eating, which caused her to appear starving. The Roanoke Times reported Harris saying she tried to stop the habit and would resist for long periods. Then would come another period of illness, and the temptation to secure relief was too great for her to resist. She would go for days and days without food, living on morphine.
That's so gross.
Yeah. So Caroline Martin, if you haven't gathered, is
a
just
peach.
something else. She had said when they took her into custody that she was ready for death, but she really seems to be enjoying all the attention from the press.
Gross.
And she'll talk to anybody. She is quick to explain her side of the story. She was not on the run after her daughter died, she said. She was staying free in order to sell some property and fund her sister's defense.
Ugh.
That's her story. Caroline is also adamant that Ocey chose death by suicide, and it was an idea that she had been obsessed with ever since Fletcher left. But again, she knew Fletcher was alive. Why wouldn't you tell her that?
You sicko.
For the letters, all of the letters that were found in Caroline's room, that is the proper Southern thing to do. Refined people leave notes and practice to make sure they are perfect.
What?
She said refined. I didn't say that. She said that. Yeah. Uneducated people wouldn't do that.
Wow.
That's what she said.
See my letters.
I mean, I hate to break it to you, Caroline, but we text now. Some reporters call her out. They say, so you're out of jail when your daughter was buried and you didn't even go to the funeral? She does not love that. She spins those tables like a champ, saying that
Oh, yeah.
she was alone in her boarding room, sick with grief, and she had to read about it in the papers, and poor her.
God. get a
She's
life.
also, ironically, a real advocate for women's rights, screaming any chance she gets that she wants a jury of her peers, which would mean there should be women on the jury.
I
And
mean, you're not wrong,
you're not wrong, but
but you're a C word.
I wish you weren't. Yeah, you're not the face of the feminist, there it is, movement we're hoping for, right?
Imagine.
Yeah. Like, first of all, you don't even have a face because you got the veil on 24/7. So
And
that's
you're
not helping.
terrifying and you're evil.
Yeah. And Caroline starts comparing herself to people like Joan of Arc.
No.
Yeah. Just
That's
a real,
not okay.
real martyr.
Ew. Fuck you, dude.
Yeah. Now, we know she married Colonel Martin and had Hugh and Ocey. I mean, apparently, because we don't know for sure. While the children were growing up, Caroline was a teacher. She was intelligent. People agree on that. But they also say she was harsh and odd.
Yep.
She is not described as a warm woman at any point in her life.
Shocking.
She was said to treat the children, especially Hugh, cruelly.
She's a sociopath. She's the one.
Every day, Caroline would get lunch from the school cafeteria. Hugh would have to sit with her, but was not allowed to get his own lunch.
What?
He would eat crackers and leftovers that other teachers saved for him.
Oh my God.
Both children were required to walk behind their mother at all times.
What?
Even though Hugh's death is reported on November 30th of 1888 as meningitis, there were rumors that he had suffered a fall down the stairs that had been fatal.
What? So this has
Yeah.
been she's been like this.
I think so. At the turn of the century,
Wow.
it's clear Caroline is having financial problems, right? We know that happened.
Yes.
Creditors are constantly visiting the school. She asks to receive mail at the custodian's house. Even though she has a school office and a home.
Mm-hmm.
She demands money from acquaintances, and reports say that she does it as if she's trying to hypnotize them. They'll say no, and
Okay.
she'll just repeat herself saying, "You will loan me the money. You will loan me the
What?
money."
That's terrifying.
Yeah. There's also an incident where Caroline will fall in front of the Vanderbilt's house and then sues them. And nobody knows what
Pathetic.
happened. Yeah, nobody knows what happens. But as soon as those crutches appeared, they were gone. So either she just dropped the suit or they settled out of court because suddenly she was fine.
Wow.
Eventually, Caroline's behavior was so odd that the superintendent pushed for her retirement because she was a principal of a girls' grammar school. His reasoning was that Mrs. Martin was, quote, mentally incapacitated for the position. Good call, dude. She agreed to retire and earned a pension of $1,000 a year. The same year of her retirement, Colonel Martin suffers a stroke. The family had been struggling before, right? They're staying in a boarding house at this time. They're not doing great. The man next door to them hears a commotion. He runs over to help. He heard a loud noise and then he heard crying. He opens the door. Colonel Martin is on the floor groaning. Ocey is in the corner crying. Caroline laying on the bed, totally uninterested in anything that's going on around her.
Sociopath.
The room was filthy. And think of how filthy it has to be for him to take that detail in.
Yeah.
Right? Because
that's a
he's
great
not-
point.
He's not like sitting down and like helping himself to a cup of tea and noticing that there's a spot on his spoon.
Right.
He's in an emergency situation. So it must
And
be
you
really
notice that, yeah.
in your face. Ocey's sobbing. Your husband is in some sort of distress. A stranger has also flung open a door to your room. When somebody sneezes, I scream. So I would have lost
true.
my mind.
It's one of the blessings of my life, actually.
Yeah, you are sick with that. Caroline looks right at this man, deadlocks him in the eye, and says, "Ocey, remember."
What?
Ocey falls silent. The man runs for help because he's like, "I don't have time to unpack this, lady." Colonel Martin is dead the next morning.
Oh my God.
Now, Caroline is said to have received $20,000 insurance policy from her husband's death. Despite that, she lets the payments for her husband's burial arrangement lapse, and a group of soldiers have to take over and take care of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, she's bad news.
Now, 1901 was a big year for Caroline and Ocey. Colonel Martin had died. Caroline had retired. They had to catch up with Virginia at Soule College. They blow that up. We know after their time in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, the sisters split up again, right? Caroline goes back to New York, married to Georgia, and Virginia had this new job in Virginia. Well, just like last time, they all start coming back together again. First, Mary, which again, Mary and Virginia seem no issues. They seem to be able to exist, just the two of them. Then Caroline comes in like a hurricane. Just like at the last school, she starts taking over. Starts switching curriculums up on a whim, moves students randomly, pops up at night, starts padlocking random doors for no reason.
Fuck.
Here's where we get some real weird background. Now, Fletcher and John Snead have already set up a life. Fletcher's older than Ocey. Not a ton. It's hard to get exact dates for him, but I guess he's probably about 8 to 10 years older than her.
Okay.
Fletcher and John Snead have set up a life in Tennessee. They've opened their own sawmill. The two brothers end up marrying sisters, and they have a double wedding.
What?
Fletcher and his wife have a son.
What?
Yeah. We have no account of how they felt during this time, but they had a life.
Oh my God.
It was not with their aunts. They had a life. Then Caroline shows up and demands John return to Christiansburg, Virginia with her to accept a teaching position. His wife is obviously, WTF.
Right.
No, you can't do that. And she begs John to stay, so he refuses. Caroline will not leave. He has to call the police.
Why is she like this?
A few weeks later, she returns with the same proposal.
Get out.
For whatever reason, on God's green earth, he agrees and he goes with her. He leaves his
What?
wife. His wife becomes so despondent that she has to be checked into a sanitarium. From here, things only get worse for John. A series of accidents occur.
Oh my God.
One, he falls off a moving train.
What?
Aunts say he fell. However, Caroline was the only aunt with him, and witnesses say it appeared that he jumped.
He was trying to escape her or
Two.
pushed?
John was then saved from drowning. He had fallen into some sort of well. Again, aunts say he fell. And lastly, and tragically, John Snead caught on fire. Stories reported that a lamp exploded, but his body had been doused in kerosene.
What?
The unwritten story was that John had either set himself on fire or met with foul play.
What?
John Snead passed away.
That's horrific.
His life insurance policy had recently been changed from his wife to Virginia Wardlaw.
Fuck you guys. I hate the three of you.
Before the insurance would pay out, Fletcher was asked to testify to his brother's mental state. He said it was an accident. The policy was paid.
Fletcher's no good. Or he's being manipulated.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is Fletcher no good, or did he just watch his brother get murdered?
But also, some people do resist that.
I know, but I think we can agree that Fletcher's maybe not the most courageous man in the world.
Yeah.
So that's why I can't decide. Is he just trying to save his own skin at every turn,
Right.
and he's scared,
Yeah.
or is he in on this?
Right. That's a good point. Neither is admirable, obviously.
Fletcher is not passing under the radar during this either. Caroline sends Fletcher to Kentucky to settle some family business.
What the hell does that mean?
The problem is he doesn't come back. He's married and has a kid.
Oh.
His wife receives word that Fletcher is sick and staying in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Well, they're in Tennessee, so they're only 150 miles away.
Right.
His wife goes there and
Yeah.
is not allowed to enter the room where he's being kept, apparently.
This sounds familiar.
Yeah. She goes back a second time, and Fletcher is gone, moved by a woman who matches Caroline's description. I can't even. So Fletcher's first wife, she files for divorce because what just
Can
happened?
you imagine if that happened? Like, Brad just disappeared?
Yeah, just,
Doesn't make any sense.
well, hold on. There's more. Not only that, but a woman I've never met
Right.
shows up in a full veil and cape and says, your husband's going to have to come with me.
Right.
And then I just get word that he's staying in a random city and he's sick, and that's all I'm going to get. And every time I
that's
go
what
to
I'm
see him,
saying.
he's being moved.
There's
What?
Can you imagine? Like, you'd think he was part of a crazy like regime or something.
So Fletcher, right? His first wife leaves him. She says, I can't be married to somebody
Yeah.
who is hiding in boarding
Yeah.
houses with a veiled lady. Goodbye.
Bye.
After this, in 1906, Ocey and Fletcher marry. Some say they are forced to marry for reasons I can't begin to understand. What would the sisters get out of them marrying? I can't.
Maybe get his life policy or something.
What's odd is they never had a life insurance policy on Fletcher because he sold it to his brother-in-law. Maybe to get rid of it.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm out of here. I don't understand what is going on. I don't understand the hold that Caroline seems to have over people. I don't understand what her end game was with the boys. I don't understand why they would want Ocey and Fletcher to be married.
Right. I'm trying to think through that. Like, what's the gain here? Because that's all these women care about.
Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, during their time in Christiansburg, the sisters are also having business meetings, which are very memorable. At every single account is weird. The women have money hidden in trash cans. So when somebody says, well, we don't know if you have the collateral, like Caroline will just reach into her trash bag and be like, here you go. Here's some money.
What?
They make odd demands and enough that most people are saying, no, thank you. And getting out of there as fast as they can. The people who do agree, surprise, it goes bad.
Surprise, surprise.
It's some sort of con. As if that's not enough, perhaps one of the strangest stories about Caroline Martin comes from Mrs. Hancock in Roanoke, Virginia. One Easter Sunday, the Hancocks opened their door to find a 4-month-old baby left on their doorstep. The couple take the baby in. They run a boarding house. They take the baby in. They make it a part of their family. They adopt her. They name her.
Aww.
She's good.
Harry Potter.
A few weeks later, Caroline shows up at the Hancocks boarding house. She takes an instant liking to this baby. So much so that when the baby comes down with the sniffles, Caroline wants to take the baby back to Christiansburg for some fresh air. They're real big on this fresh air. The family refuses. Caroline leaves, but keeps calling to see if they've changed their mind and leaves Virginia behind in case they do.
Is it her baby?
Just in case, I don't know, but just in case the Hancocks are like, you know what, you should go with this stranger. You've been at our boarding house for 5 days. Bye. Eventually, Virginia realizes that the Hancocks are not going to change their mind and she leaves. She leaves her room of total mess and she leaves behind 2 suitcases.
What?
One is full of papers with various names on these documents. Martin, Snead, all these combinations. Also, newspaper articles full of people's death.
Ugh. Disturbing. Very disturbing.
Well, wait for this one. The other suitcase. Do you know what's in that one?
No.
It's not a dead body, so
clothes.
You can come. No. What'd you say?
Clothes.
It is filled with clothes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Expensive clothes for a baby girl for the first year of her life.
What? Creep.
Also, they described it as a salve or like a balm that they had that Mrs. Hancock noticed was what she thought was on the baby when it was left at the doorstep because it had like a unique property. I don't know if it had a unique smell or texture, but
oh my God,
she thinks it's the
boiled
same.
Down human.
No, I think she just thinks it's the same. Like it's a very distinct.
Oh, but why? I don't get it. I hope they use those clothes. They're nice.
Yeah, me too. But why? Although if it was me, I'd probably be like, nope, burning these suitcases.
Probably.
Why? Who is this baby? Was this Ocey's baby and they took it from her? Was
my God, imagine?
Why do they want this baby? What is happening? I don't understand it.
DNA test that shit.
Well, too late now, but
wow.
By 1908, the whole gang is back in New York.
Great.
Fletcher's working for that construction company. Ocey helps with the bookkeeping as well because I guess Fletcher's not great at it.
Before she gets
before she
held hostage.
Incapacitated. By March 1909, Fletcher gets fired. He leaves New York. We know now that the family will say that he's dead, but again, and at least Caroline knew. I don't know if Virginia knew.
Right.
He runs to Ontario. With all of these stories coming out, Caroline has explanations for everything. She again doubles down on the fact that Ocey is her daughter. John and Fletcher were independent men who made their own choices. And Fletcher's first marriage broke up because his wife was older than him and had tricked him because she was an old maid. Fletcher
Wow.
says that the first marriage broke up because his brother-in-law tried to kill him or threatened to
What?
kill him. And Mrs. Hancock,
Yeah.
the baby's mother, she's just blowing things out of proportion. Caroline was only worried for the baby's health. So
Get out of here.
that's all you got to worry about. The sisters say that Fletcher and Ocey loved each other and were married twice. Not forced, but married in secret in 1906 because the family objected. But once they came around, they married again in January of 1908 when Ocey was pregnant. This was to ensure they were protected since rules for first cousins varied state by state.
I wonder why that is.
Yeah. And they show proof of the couple's love with a letter that Ocey apparently wrote.
Uh-huh.
The letter had never been mailed because Fletcher had left without a forwarding address.
I wonder if it matches the suicide note.
It seems that all the evidence of how Ocey felt is in these notes that no one can
Yep.
confirm is from Ocey. Like, the dude left for his health.
Yeah.
He
it'd be
can
like,
leave a
where
forwarding
are you?
address.
Yeah.
Get your shit together and get back home. The sisters are not faring well in the legal system. I mean, by their perspective.
Good.
Both Mary and Caroline say they were not even in the state, but we have witnesses that say differently.
So clever.
Each appearance in court for Caroline is absolute chaos. She constantly screams out, demanding for fairness or justice or for her rights.
Yeah.
On more than one occasion, she has to be carried out, clinging to benches, dropping so that she's
Wow.
dead weight, and they need a team of people to carry her outside and calm her down. They have to move her veils for a portion of this trial, which she detests.
Yeah.
Every court appearance is just ridiculous. December 22nd, all three sisters are charged with murder
Yes.
and aiding, counseling, and abetting in self-murder.
What?
They're charged with two things. So
What's
they're saying
self-murder?
suicide.
Oh.
At trial, Caroline and Virginia are charged with murder, and Mary is considered an accessory.
Okay. Good.
When asked to plea, Virginia quietly says, not guilty. Mary whispers, not guilty, can barely get it out. Caroline, I am absolutely not guilty.
You're
She
a
was my only
sociopath.
daughter.
Oh,
Gets the
wow.
vapor. I mean, it's a scene. The trial is set for April 1910. By January 10th, the Morning Post reports that Fletcher Snead has vanished again from the hotel where he was John Lucas.
This guy sucks.
Yeah. Employees wonder if he took his own life. He left the hotel the same day the three sisters were officially charged, and he previously said he was working to save money for the defense. All that can be determined was Fletcher left in the middle of the night without having slept in his bed.
Okay.
Bye, Fletcher. You're not helping.
You're the worst.
February 6th, the woman's elderly aunt, who I've mentioned before, Oceana Pollock,
Yeah.
she dies.
Mysteriously.
Caroline writes to the paper saying Mrs. Pollock died of a broken heart.
Oh, fuck off.
To see her
Nobody loves you.
to see her nieces so mistreated. Okay?
No, this is called a justice.
The Washington Herald, along with other papers, published the following letter from Caroline.
Oh.
Mrs. Pollock died of a broken heart caused by the shock, surprise, and grief over the false allegations made against her beloved nieces. The mother and the aunt of Mrs. Ocey Snead of Newark, Mrs. Ocey Snead and Miss Ocey Wardlaw were both named for Mrs. Pollock, who had trained in Christian character and high integrity her beloved nieces.
No.
Pause real quick. Virginia's actual real name is also
Oh my God.
Oceana. She just goes by Virginia. That's what they're talking about. The mother and the aunts of the lovely and lamented Ocey Snead, Miss Wardlaw, Miss Martin, and Mrs. Snead are suffering greatly from the bereavement of these two recent deaths in the family.
Uh-huh. That you caused.
Just so you know, Oceana Pollock is like almost 100 years old.
Right.
So she died of natural causes, not because her nieces are being mistreated, but
Or maybe of the shame and disappointment. Because you are evil torturers.
yeah. April comes around, the trial is postponed because Virginia is very ill.
Good.
By May, the warden is afraid that there might be another suicide pact in the works, and he removes Caroline, separating her from the other two.
Oh, interesting.
In June, the women's mother, Martha, Ocey's grandmother, also dies. We know very little about Martha other than that she's the only woman in the group that Ocey seemed to trust.
Okay.
And she was well into her 80s.
Wow.
There are also accounts that Martha was scared of her daughters.
Interesting.
She said that a daughter had taken all her money and now she was dependent on her for everything.
Oh, God.
So it's very possible that Ocey and Martha were being held captive.
Yeah.
In July, David Pollock Snead, Ocey's son, also passes away
Oh,
without his mother and a father that he's never met.
yeah. That's really sad.
I know. By summer, Virginia had improved but felt sick again by August. The prison notices she seems to be strategically eating less and less, and they realize she is starving herself.
I'm not going to shed any tears over that.
The prison allows food to be brought in that's not prison food, and at first she eats it, but after a few more days she seems resolved to starvation again and stops eating it.
Good. Now you know how your victims feel.
A doctor is sent to examine her, and he made the decision to move her to a facility where there was care. Force feeding was administered. Her health rapidly declines. Bessie, who's the younger sister I mentioned
Yes,
previously,
the normal
and the only other surviving sibling, because John died young,
one.
their brother Albert, they come to say goodbye to Virginia. By the time
Okay.
they arrive, Virginia's in a coma.
Got it.
Virginia Wardlaw passes away August 11th, 1910, before ever standing trial for the murder of Ocey Snead. As the papers reported her death, they claim Virginia was the leader of the Three Sisters in Black and the mastermind behind this plan.
Doesn't seem like it, though, to me.
I know, using hypnosis to keep Ocey under a spell.
I really think it's Caroline.
I agree. Following Virginia's death, Caroline is officially examined for her sanity at the behest of her siblings. Not Mary, but Bessie
Right.
and Albert are like, you got to get in there to see if she should be placed in a facility besides jail. Her choices
Okay.
have now become a trial for the murder of your own daughter or an asylum. Not great. This means she has to have a separate competency hearing first before her and Mary can stand trial.
Okay.
Several witnesses testify to Caroline's what they call odd behavior, things that are not necessarily harmful, but just off.
Yeah.
And so some of those things are, she kept a big box of money and she would throw the bills on the floor. Like she liked to make it rain. And she refused to let her maid pick it up. She just said, no,
What?
leave it there. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
She
Strange.
would stay shut in for weeks at a time and not leave her
Not
room or not go
surprising.
out of the house. She would hide mundane tasks as if they were big secrets.
Like
I don't
what?
know. I don't know. I guess she'd have to go to the bathroom and she'd make a big deal of it or something, or have to go to the market and act really
Wow.
covert about it. Just normal things that people do. She would act like she was hiding something.
Okay.
Her speech and her moods were erratic. I think we've witnessed
Yeah.
that. She would buy duplicates of things or multiple copies of things for no reason, for no need.
Paranoia.
Yeah, she would say, here's money, go out and buy 20 aprons.
Whoa.
She also, we have the dressing, right? We've got the cape and the veil.
Yeah.
And the
I
dress.
bet she told her sisters to dress like that too.
Also, one time she went outside and she only had one shoe on. And she was
Oh.
getting into a carriage and didn't realize it and had to be told to go back in
Okay.
and get fully dressed. Her brother is a reverend. So Reverend Albert Wardlaw testifies that Caroline's mental faculties had started to decline. Example, in 1891 at a family reunion, she stated that her name was Salvatore and that she was equal to the creator.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's a out of left field.
Yeah.
She also expressed that she was in charge of the family and then compared herself to Jesus.
I mean, that seems on point for her.
Yeah, but not I don't think JC wants the comparison, you know what I mean?
Sure.
He's probably like, I'm all set. Please don't, lady. Bessie, the youngest sister, who again is 20 years younger, testified that Caroline also exhibited really lavish spending habits. So, for example, Bessie would have been a kid, right, when Caroline was old. She had a kind of expensive Christmas wish list. She had one present on there that was really a wish.
Yeah.
Caroline bought it for her and then bought 6 more of it. So she gave her 7 of the same thing.
Okay.
For no reason. She also started, visibly to them becoming more irritated, not dressing appropriately, having a violent temper. She came to stay with Bessie one time for one night. 7 months later, Bessie had to be like, you got to get out of here.
Good.
Her room was messy, filled with spoiled food that was not allowed to be
Ugh.
removed. She made it stay there.
What the fuck?
Bessie had to call Virginia, who came and took Caroline away, which is interesting. It seems that Virginia's almost in charge of some things, but that Caroline's the lead. Caroline, when she came to Bessie, she had nothing. Bessie had to buy her clothes and everything, so she had nothing.
What?
When she left, she had 7 trunks worth of things.
Whoa.
All of them were newspaper clippings.
What? Okay, yeah, she is not
She's not well.
mentally. Yeah.
No, she's not well.
Ugh.
A maid who Caroline employed in the early 1900s said Caroline would eat a few bites of something and then hide it in her room.
What?
Like, hide it in weird places too, like under your bed.
Ugh.
I
It's a
mean,
nightmare.
short of an Easter egg hunt, I am not for hiding food. Now, during this trial, Caroline interrupted so many times that the judge at one point had to call a week-long recess.
Wow.
She's just sharing her thoughts through the proceedings. She thinks that the prosecution is hiding her grandson, that he's not really dead. She says everyone's against her, that someone in jail is spying on her. She says she's being judged by the gigantic machine of men and there's no justice and this is a conspiracy. At one point, her veil falls off, so she took it off and started running up and down the aisles and then started taking off her shoes.
Oh. Okay.
This is at her competency hearing, okay?
Oh.
They have 3 separate doctors examine her.
I mean, I could tell you she's not well.
They all agree. They're like, yeah, she is mentally ill. They use the word insane at the time. But their findings are basically that there's a genetic component of mental illness that they all found. That she's delusional, impaired judgment, egocentric, paranoia, beliefs of persecution. They all believe it to be a progressive condition that would only get worse.
Yeah.
And they all unanimously agree that Caroline Martin should be in an asylum. On the flip side, some of Caroline's claims are actually true. Someone was stealing her mail in prison. She was being watched. Her family has been trying to put her in an asylum for years. So
yeah,
she's not wrong about some things. This is just a weird thing, but I wanted to point it out to give you another flavor of Caroline's character. During the trial, she asks for the word equitable to be changed to equable, saying she would rather be convicted and electrocuted than use bad English. So that's you.
Yeah.
With your, I mean, that's
it is.
That's not what's important here, ma'am. You need to. Now, the prosecution brings in their own expert. They bring in, what would be a neurologist, Dr. Bailing. Dr. Bailing. He relays that Caroline explained Ocey overdosed and then took a bath, and that Virginia was also a morphine addict. She said the 2 of them had a suicide pact. And all of the papers that she kept, all those newspaper clippings, were simply for research because she wanted to write a novel. The doctor says although she may be eccentric, she is competent and acts as expected for her age and upbringing. To which Caroline interrupts and says the doctor can't judge because he's not American and he wouldn't know about her upbringing.
Wow.
Yeah, and the judge was like, "Lady, what do you want here? Like, he's saying you're sane and you just interrupted with this comment." She has to be carried out to recover because she's so upset.
Oh, boy.
In December of 1910, the judge deems Caroline Martin sane to stand trial.
What?
Yeah, saying that based on the stress of losing your daughter, being charged for her murder, having a family who is against you, having people spying on you in prison, they would expect her to be stressed. They think that she seems to be able to relay and comprehend what her lawyer is telling her and what the judge is telling her. And for that, they think she's sane to stand trial.
Those both can exist. Like, she's clear. I believe that she's been mentally ill her whole life.
Yeah.
And it's gotten worse. But
yeah.
she is also competent enough to live. Well, she doesn't even live normally though, with all the food shit. Oh man, I wonder if she had resources early, if this could have been controlled.
Yeah, I don't know. So the trial starts January 9th, 1911. Both Mary Snead and Caroline Martin.
Yeah.
Expecting a big trial with more theatrics because Caroline has been delivering. The public is right there for the viewing, and they are wildly disappointed when Caroline Martin changes her plea of not guilty to guilty of involuntary manslaughter. She never actually said those words because she couldn't get it out. She instead said she was in the hands of Jersey men and she did nothing wrong despite pleading guilty. Her attorney had to just cut her off and say, she pleads guilty to this. We're done here. On January 23rd, the sentencing takes place. Now, before the judge could speak, Caroline's lawyer provides a new version of what happened that night. And it is the first story that makes sense, although whether it's true or not, He says that Ocey was sick. Caroline was there with her. Comforting her is the word he used. That's where I think your first lie happens.
Mm-mm.
Caroline administered morphine to Ocey medicinally, as she had done on several occasions to help with the pain. Except this time, Ocey became unresponsive. It was then that Caroline, and I assume Virginia, put Ocey in the tub in cold water to try and revive her. But that did not work. Caroline said when she realized what had happened, she was, quote, half crazed. Now, the prosecution does not want any leniency. Their argument is even if what you just said is true, you still fled the scene and left your daughter there. Caroline protests her innocence again. As the judge starts to present the reasoning behind his sentence, Caroline starts weeping, saying men are lying and men are doing this to women. And she's never given morphine to anyone. The judge has to call a recess. I'm like, lady. So clearly that story can't be true.
She's out of her mind.
It's the only story that makes sense as to how she was found and how it's the only story that makes sense if you wanted to put it into the category of accident.
Yes.
Like she accidentally overdosed and they tried to revive her and that's how they did it. And then they tried to cover up their tracks. I don't believe that because of so many other things, but that's the only story that I've heard that's like, oh, well, you should have started there. So they have to call recess because she just won't stop talking. When court comes back in session, the judge sentences Caroline Martin to 7 years in the New Jersey State Prison. February 8th, next day, she's sent to Trenton. She hired a carriage to take her because she didn't want to go in the prison van, just so you know.
That's nice.
Now, on the same day, Mary Snead is set free. With Caroline's plea of manslaughter, she's no longer considered an accessory because it's not possible to be an accessory to manslaughter.
Oh.
Mary's son, Alfred, comes to pick her up. He makes a statement for the press on his mother's behalf, saying he's glad that this was cleared up and his mother has always been innocent, and he thinks Caroline is also innocent, but that she needs help. One of those things is true. Mary lived with her son in Colorado for the rest of her life until her death at 88 in 1937. There's no further mention of Fletcher, but findagrave.com lists his death as 1955 in Los Angeles. I don't know if that's true or not. Caroline did not finish her sentence in prison. She was transferred to the state hospital for the insane.
Oh.
Her condition worsened as time went on.
Yeah.
She died June of 1913. Cause of death was heart disease.
She did not last long at all.
No, just a couple years. So, okay, so many questions we need to unpack. First off, what do you think happened that night? Do you think it was an accidental overdose?
No.
Do you think it was an intentional overdose? Do you think they drowned her? What do you think happened?
I think they intentionally overdosed her and tried to make it seem like a suicide.
I don't even know if they intentionally overdosed her. I think she was so ill that they just gave her enough to make her unconscious.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, either way, they abused and tortured her.
I totally agree. I think that she might have been addicted to morphine, and if she was, it was because they'd been giving it to her since her time in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Like all of these accounts of her being under a spell, I believe
she's
was
probably drugged.
Drugged, yes.
And she can't do anything about it. She has no strength.
Yeah. But she's also a
the
teenager
poor
who's
girl.
with her parental unit. Like, where's she going to go? What's she going to do?
It's so sick. I fucking hate it.
I think they probably started giving her morphine when she was very young, and she probably was addicted to it. But I just don't think she had a chance. I think they'd been mistreating her for years.
Probably forever.
Probably forever, yeah. I mean, the fact that Caroline would do the same thing to Hugh.
Yeah.
That controlling behavior of withholding food and using food as a reward, not a necessity. I'm sure Ocey was struggling with that same thing.
I'm sure. God,
the fact that she couldn't walk on her own, means there's no way that even if Ocey was conscious through the entire episode and said, yes, help me do this, that's still not
right.
That's not cutting it. That's why the prosecution threw that charge on of aiding and abetting.
Got it.
What do you think about Fletcher?
He's a piece of shit.
I mean, besides that, he's the worst. Yeah. I wonder, were they also giving him morphine? They seem to somehow have this strong hold over these young,
Yeah.
their children to young men to young women. Like, how are they doing that?
I don't know. Are they really influential? Do they threaten their other family members? I don't know. I mean, with Ocey, it's easier because it's, lifelong for her. So she's probably just been abused enough to just be kept in a cage.
It's gradual. It's probably been really
Yeah.
gradual for her. As her mother gets
Mhm.
worse, her abuse gets worse.
Yeah.
I just don't understand that John left. I don't understand that Fletcher left. Why are these men leaving their families and their
Right.
wives just because their aunt showed up and said you had
Is
to?
there some kind of threat? Like, is she saying, like, I'll kill your wife or I'll kill your sister or whatever to try to convince them to come?
I don't understand it.
Or, like, say something crazy, make up a lie to say that they need to leave.
Who do you think that baby belonged to?
Caroline. No.
No,
Ocey.
I think so too. The only way Caroline would know to go there is if she's the one who put the baby there.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless there was some big paper that reported on it. And then maybe she thought because she obviously was obsessed with the papers. Unless there was some big story on it and she got some sort of weird, obsession with it, which can happen. I guess that's a possibility.
But why would there be a story about that?
Well, it's a big deal. I mean, on Easter Sunday, a baby was found on somebody's doorstep. I'm sure that
But it's a boarding house.
but it was abandoned. Like today when people abandon babies at the fire station, it's like this big thing and people from all over write in to adopt it. And I wonder if it was something similar to that. I wonder if there was a story that ran and Caroline said, let's go.
Maybe.
That baby's a celebrity. That's an opportunity for me to have,
Yeah.
something that, but I again, it seems odd. Oh, but nobody mentioned Ocey being pregnant a third time.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know. But she's also in hiding so much. Maybe she was not seen for several months.
Right. Who knows? I just can't believe like the torture they did.
Which sister do you think was in charge?
Caroline. Is Virginia the oldest?
Caroline's the oldest, then
Okay.
Mary, then Virginia. So out of the three, Virginia's the youngest.
Right.
I mean, Bessie's technically the
Bessie.
youngest, but
But she's
Bessie's
not
like,
in the
I'm out.
killer
You guys,
trio.
peace. We are never playing hide and seek. I don't want anything to do with you guys. Virginia seems like she was intelligent and totally fine when she was by herself. Even when she was with Mary, they were fine. She had a successful career. She had a good reputation. She was
But
considered.
she was still complicit.
Oh, I'm not putting her out of this. I'm just saying to argue who's in charge. It seemed
Mhm.
that Caroline is the common denominator for awful. Virginia and
yeah.
Mary,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
by themselves, they were fine. They didn't do anything weird. They didn't hurt anybody. They didn't have anybody locked up in a room.
Yeah.
They weren't pushing their kids off of trains. Like they were fine.
Yeah.
So I just feel like Mary seems really passive and could do anything you say, but Virginia seems to have a little bit more
Yeah, she does.
oomph to her. That's why I wonder if Ocey was her daughter and it was something Caroline held over her, because we know that a reputation, especially for these
Yep.
folks,
Southern women.
that is something that Virginia would never want to get out.
I wonder.
The other thing I wonder is if Virginia was a morphine addict herself, which would also be another secret that she was hiding.
Right.
I feel like there must have been a secret there.
Yes.
Because Caroline
That she
needed
manipulated.
more to
Yeah.
hold Virginia under her spell than Mary, I think.
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
And I also think Caroline's the one who murdered Ocey, and I think Virginia was
I have
just
no doubt about it.
trying to pick up the pieces after it happened.
Yeah.
Like, it's already happened. Now what do we do? If this
Right.
gets out, it'll ruin everybody.
Right.
One of the recollections of the two women being in prison together when Virginia was, starving herself to death, Caroline whispered something in her ear, and Virginia said, "Leave me alone. Just leave me alone."
Whoa.
My final question to you is, why are they wearing those outfits? Nobody asked them that. For a while, I thought it was going to come
Yeah.
out as some sort of religious thing, and I was like curious to hear because I'd not heard of this, but nope. Nobody was like, "Hey, why are you wearing a cape?"
I mean, people dress a little different back in the early 1900s. There's some capes.
Sure. I mean, we know from Sarah Winchester.
And some muffs.
Yeah, those muffs, which you do not believe me, are a real thing. These ladies did not have muffs, but
I don't want to touch their muffs.
We know from Sarah Winchester that veils were something that she used because she was self-conscious. So it could have been as
Yes.
simple as that.
I don't know, man. If I know, I would be so scared if I saw someone in public like that. That would terrify me.
I don't think I'd be scared. I'd have questions.
I'd be scared.
I wonder if it wasn't done intentionally so that it was more confusing to tell who was who.
I don't know. I don't think Caroline's that smart.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
where I think
Sure.
it doesn't go that far. Like, she's competent enough to like fucking torture someone, but I don't think she's that smart. I think maybe she's obsessed with death, right? We know this. So what if that's part of that? And she's
just in perpetual mourning.
the more and more she pushed it on her sisters, like, you need to do this. You need to do this. This is the proper thing to do. Like, look at all the death.
But why are her sisters doing it?
Because she's very manipulative and influential.
I mean, have you ever worn a veil? It's incredibly uncomfortable.
I don't think I ever will. I would never. And also terrifying. Reminded me of like a horror movie.
Especially a black, and they're thick. It's
I
not,
know.
I want you to understand, like lots of times you think of veil, it's like one little
Like
piece of
a
lace.
thin.
Yeah, these suckers are thick. There's several layers of fabric.
And it covers their face.
Completely hide their face. So what are your last words?
If someone is encouraging you to do bad things, it's worth for your secrets to come out instead of harming others.
Yeah, and if your family is holding a secret over you, get away from them.
Yep, find your freedom. 2, mental health resources are really important and can save lives.
Yes, as well as drug addiction.
Yeah.
Right, because I'm sure there was some of that,
Yeah.
whether that was Ocey's
Right.
intentional or not, right? She was struggling for sure.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I just wonder if, I mean, things went so wrong. It's not, I couldn't even say like if things start to feel wrong, like it went so wrong. It takes a while to starve someone.
Oh, for years, I think she was starving.
Yeah. You got to recognize that and reckon with that and do something about it.
Well, that's what makes me think she was addicted to morphine. And I think they forced her to be addicted to morphine to control her, because that's how I imagine her looking, like somebody who's at, the bottom of their drug addiction and just really struggling. And I think I don't think Fletcher was involved, but my take on Fletcher is that he was like, I don't know how to save her and I need to save myself. And he was just a coward and left her because it was so messy in there.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And he was like, they've already killed my brother.
Right.
And I hope she makes it, but I can't. I have to get away. That's what makes his quote make sense to me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Fletcher's dead.
Yeah.
I don't want anything to do with that.
Right. He's trying to escape that whole thing, which is, super cowardly because your wife is being killed slowly.
And your cousin. So.
And
And your children. So.
Mm-hmm.
There is a world in which Ocey Snead could have been a really successful, happy woman. And I don't think Mary would have survived her first daughter, but I think that maybe David would have had a chance if he was with her.
Yeah. It's just, this is a horrific story.
Yeah, it's really, really awful.
Evil, evil people.
And when you really get into it, like I said, when you see the headline of this story, it's just a woman died in a tub. Was it an accident? That's not the story at all.
Yeah, like
that's not the story at all.
That's so messed up.
This woman was kept captive for years and abused and possibly witnessed her father die and her brother, either by illness or by being shoved down the stairs, and was manipulated and controlled and forced into doing things and staying in and really being in a bed for most of her life, just laying there.
Horrible.
And the grandmother also was probably,
it's
just her and Ocey probably who had trouble.
Yeah. It's really, really sick.
Yeah.
If you notice something wrong too, like with other people, especially kids, like you can tell when something's wrong. Push past society niceties of, it's none of my business, and make it your business. The worst thing that happens is that you intrude and you come off as rude or something, but you could also be saving a kid's life or just like taking them out of a bad situation.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, now we are lucky enough to have, it's not a great system. Obviously, there's lots of problems with it, but it's better than what Ocey had available to her. So there are more options. And also even, obviously this is so extreme, but even if you see verbal abuse happening,
Mhm.
even just saying something, that leaves a mark in the kid's mind that
Of
they can
course
take
it
with them.
does.
That
Yeah.
child hearing somebody for the first time say, that's not right and that's not okay, that can start to help that child right then and
Yeah.
there.
Build
Ev-
strength.
Even if it's something minor, right? Rather, obviously, this is chaos. Poor Ocey. All right. Well, who should
Ocey.
listen?
CPS.
Yeah, social workers.
Yeah, social workers, sisters, psychologists,
Veil providers.
veil providers, and let's think, doctors,
Yeah.
lawyers.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Dr. Pettit, man. He did his best. I wish somebody had just picked her up, thrown him
I
over
know.
their shoulder,
Exactly. And like just bowled
just
over the
left.
woman.
and like, get out the way. I'm going to rip your
Yeah.
veil off. Move.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, they couldn't because that's kidnapping, right? And then they'd have I understand that they technically couldn't, but that's
But
what
maybe.
you're rooting for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we would have been able to hear Ocey's story. That's what makes me
Right.
the most upset is I don't know how Ocey felt at any point in
No.
this other than the few snippets we got of when she said, I'm starving. Get me out of here. Like what happened? I would have loved to have heard her story. There's so much
Yeah.
that was lost because those sisters aren't going to say what really
No.
happened. All right. Well, Ocey, rest in peace.
Yeah.
And the 3 veiled sisters can just
Fuck off.
get right on out. All right. Well, I guess we'll be back next week, and we're gonna have Mary Kate on this month, which will be exciting.
Woo!
Our 3rd unofficial host, and and you can find us on all the platforms at
Tea Time Crimes.
You can email us at
teatimecrimes@gmail.com. If you have a tea you want to send us, that's a great place to recommend. You could recommend it over IG, Facebook, whatever you want, and we will order it and I will try it.
Yeah,
As long
and
as
same with
there's no
suggestions.
arsenic in it.
Yeah, keep the cases coming. All right. Well, if you want to buy something, you can also find us at
teatimecrimes.show.
And we will be back next week. Thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye now.
Goodbye. Go titty-toit the house.